Elias Harper stood at the edge of the observation deck aboard the starship Dauntless, staring at the swirling clouds of Zephyria Prime below. The planet's surface shimmered in shades of violet and silver, with enormous floating cities casting glimmering reflections across the vast ocean-like plains beneath them. Humanity had come a long way in the galaxy, but this mission felt different. This was not a trade negotiation, nor was it a routine diplomatic mission. This was the first time a human diplomat had been invited to the heart of the Zephyrian court, a society renowned for its complex politics and subtle hierarchies. Some in the United Nations had cautioned him, warning that humans were considered unpredictable, even primitive, by many alien races. Elias, however, was undeterred. He knew humans possessed something no alien could predict: ingenuity and boldness. The doors slid open and his assistant, Lieutenant Mara Chen, joined him quietly. "They've been expecting us," she said, her voice a mixture of awe and nervousness. "The Zephyrians, their customs are unlike anything you've prepared for, Elias. I read the protocol. A single misstep, and they could dismiss us before we even enter the palace." Elias smiled faintly. "Then we'll make sure our first step is unforgettable." He straightened his posture and adjusted the crisp uniform of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. "Remember, Mara, humans are underestimated. That's our advantage. We'll show them who we are, not who they think we are." The shuttle descended toward the floating city of Lysara, the central hub of Zephyrian diplomacy. As it passed through the translucent shields surrounding the city, Elias noticed the unique architecture. Towers spiraled upward, curving like the tendrils of giant sea creatures, and bridges of luminous crystal-linked platforms that hovered above clouds. The Zephyrians themselves were visible on the terraces and walkways, tall, elegant beings with skin that shifted in color depending on their mood, eyes like liquid silver that reflected light with eerie precision. Their movements were fluid, almost like they were gliding instead of walking. When the shuttle landed in the central docking bay, Elias and Mara stepped out onto a platform that seemed to float in midair. A delegation of Zephyrian officials approached, their robes glowing faintly. Elias bowed respectfully but did not overdo it, showing that he understood their customs but was not afraid to assert his own presence. "Welcome to Lysara, human representative," one of the officials intoned in a voice that seemed to resonate in the air. "I am Thalorin, chief of court protocol. Follow us." The corridors of the palace were like nothing Elias had ever seen. Walls appeared transparent but shifted to reveal intricate geometric patterns and shimmering glyphs. The floors were smooth, but as he stepped, faint lights traced the path of his feet. Everywhere he looked, there was beauty, and everywhere he turned, the eyes of the court watched. Finally, they reached the Hall of Assemblies, where delegates from dozens of species were already gathered. Each race had its own section, displaying colors, symbols, and artifacts that spoke of their heritage. The human section was modest, a clear glass platform that highlighted them without overshadowing anyone. Elias sensed the quiet curiosity of the other delegates, and a few even smirked, confident that humans would falter under the Zephyrians' subtle challenges. From her elevated platform, Princess Lyriel observed the room. Her hair, a flowing cascade of iridescent light, shimmered with every motion, and her eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the assembly carefully. She was known as both brilliant and unapproachable, and few had ever dared to meet her gaze directly. Today, she would judge not just their protocol skills, but their character. Elias had heard stories of her wit, how she could unravel lies with a single glance and read intentions before words were spoken. The opening ceremony began. Thalorin spoke in a language that shifted in musical tones, yet translators allowed the humans to understand the purpose of the session. It was a series of cultural and diplomatic tests designed to assess intelligence, empathy, and adaptability. Other diplomats faltered immediately. One alien delegation misinterpreted a simple greeting and was ridiculed. Another attempted to dominate the conversation with obscure knowledge, only to be countered by the Zephyrians' subtle sarcasm. The room was tense with anticipation. When it was Elias' turn, he approached with a calm smile. The Zephyrians presented a riddle that seemed impossible, layered with double meanings and cultural references unfamiliar to humans. Many delegates paused, scratching heads and whispering amongst themselves. Elias took a deep breath, and instead of answering like the others, he began by asking questions of his own. "What does the riddle seek to reveal?" he asked politely. "Is it meant to test our knowledge of your culture, or is it a measure of how we approach the unknown?" The council exchanged glances, intrigued by his directness. Then Elias continued, "If it is knowledge you seek, we may lack the history to answer perfectly. But if it is ingenuity, then perhaps a human approach will suffice." He presented a solution that combined logic with creativity, gently pointing out contradictions in the riddle's assumptions. His tone was respectful yet assertive. He did not mock, he offered perspective. The hall went silent. No one had dared approach the challenge in such a manner. It was audacious and intelligent at once. Princess Lyriel leaned forward slightly, her interest piqued. She noted the human's courage and clarity of thought. Unlike other delegates who sought to impress with memorized facts or rigid etiquette, Elias had relied on authenticity and reasoning. It was refreshing, even captivating. After the first round, informal interactions began. Delegates circulated in small groups, discussing politics, philosophy, and trade. Many approached Elias, some curious, others skeptical. He remained poised, engaging in conversation with warmth and humility, yet always confident. He listened more than he spoke, but when he did speak, his words carried clarity and insight. Slowly, whispers began to spread among the attendees. Humans were cleverer than expected. The diplomat's boldness was winning respect where intimidation had failed. As the day progressed, another challenge was announced, a ceremonial negotiation simulation. Delegates were given scenarios where they had to resolve disputes between fictional cultures. Most relied on strict rules and predetermined strategies. Elias, however, introduced a uniquely human idea. He proposed collaboration rather than competition, suggesting that compromise and empathy could create solutions superior to dominance or cunning. Some delegates laughed at the idea, dismissing it as naive. Others were forced to reconsider when his solutions demonstrated fairness and efficiency. Princess Lyriel watched closely, her curiosity transforming into genuine interest. She had observed countless species over centuries, each believing their method superior. Yet here was a human, bold and unorthodox, achieving results without deception, without exploiting weakness, and without resorting to force. It was both impressive and intriguing. During a break, Elias found himself alone on a balcony overlooking the city. The floating structures glowed under Zephyria's twin suns, casting multicolored reflections across the air. The scene was beautiful, almost magical. Lyriel approached silently, her presence noticed only when she spoke. "You are unlike any human I have observed," she said, her voice melodic yet firm. "Most would have faltered under the weight of our traditions. Most would have attempted to mimic us and failed. But you are genuine, and that alone sets you apart." Elias bowed slightly, careful not to overstep. "I am honored by your words, Princess. Humans have long learned that survival is not just about strength, but about understanding, creativity, and courage." She studied him for a moment, her silver eyes reflecting sunlight. "Curiosity and courage, you humans speak of these qualities often, yet rarely do you demonstrate them with such subtlety. You have a boldness that is rare in your kind." Their conversation continued, exploring philosophy, history, and culture. Elias shared stories of Earth's trials, how humans had overcome adversity, united in unexpected ways and celebrated diversity. Lyriel listened intently, captivated not by his achievements, but by the manner in which he conveyed ideas, openly, sincerely, and without pretension. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the Hall of Assemblies reconvened for the final event of the day. Thalorin announced a delicate ceremonial game, one that involved alliances, strategy, and ethical decisions. It was designed to test not only intelligence but character, judgment, and composure under pressure. The outcome could influence the interstellar treaty that the summit aimed to formalize. Delegates glanced nervously at one another. Many had spent centuries in diplomacy but had never faced a challenge like this. Elias knew this was his moment. He had observed patterns, noted behavior, and understood the underlying purpose of the Zephyrian tests. If humans were to earn respect, it would not be through mimicry or brute logic. It would be through insight, collaboration, and a demonstration of uniquely human qualities. As the challenge commenced, the room's tension was palpable. Aliens calculated, argued, and maneuvered. Elias approached it differently. He communicated openly, suggested alliances with those who seemed most willing to cooperate, and proposed solutions that balanced fairness with creativity. His strategy was unexpected, even revolutionary, and slowly, results began to favor his approach. Delegates who had dismissed humans now watched with astonishment. Princess Lyriel observed from her platform, fascinated. Here was a human diplomat, not only navigating a foreign culture's tests, but excelling in ways that demonstrated ingenuity, courage, and empathy. He was bold, not in recklessness but in principle. His actions hinted at something she had never expected to witness, that humans were not primitive or simple, but capable of extraordinary thought and action when guided by intellect and conscience. As the first part of the game concluded, the hall erupted in whispers. Humans had not just survived, they had impressed, intrigued, and challenged expectations. Princess Lyriel's eyes met Elia's across the room, and for a moment there was mutual recognition, two beings from vastly different worlds, united by understanding and respect. Elias knew the next day would bring new tests and challenges, but he also knew that the first impression had been made. He had not only represented humanity, but had demonstrated what humans could achieve when they trusted their minds, their ethics, and their courage. And perhaps most unexpectedly, he had captured the attention of the Zephyrian princess, whose interest was now more than mere curiosity. It was intrigue, admiration, and a hint of something deeper, yet undefined. The night fell over Lysara, and the twin moons reflected on the crystalline towers. Elias and Mara returned to their quarters, exhausted but exhilarated. Tomorrow would test them further, but for the first time in history, humans were seen not as naive outsiders, but as equals, capable of brilliance that even the Zephyrians could not anticipate. And somewhere in the floating gardens above, Princess Lyriel pondered the human diplomat whose boldness had quietly, irrevocably, captured her attention. The stage was set for what would become a diplomatic encounter unlike any other, a meeting of minds and hearts that would challenge centuries of assumptions and create ripples across the galaxy. Elias Harper, with nothing but his intellect, courage, and honesty, had begun a journey that could reshape interstellar relations and leave a lasting mark on both human and Zephyrian history. The morning sun reflected off the crystalline towers of Lysara, casting 1,000 prismatic lights across the floating city. Elias Harper awoke with a sense of quiet anticipation. Yesterday had been extraordinary, but he knew the true challenge had only just begun. The ceremonial game had tested his intellect and composure, but the final rounds, the tests of judgment, diplomacy, and ethics, would be far more demanding. He dressed carefully, every motion deliberate, aware that today the eyes of the Zephyrian court, and especially Princess Lyriel, would follow his every step. Mara Chen knocked gently on the door before entering. "They've prepared the next simulation," she said. "It's unlike anything in the briefing. I think they're observing how we adapt to sudden change." Elias nodded. "Then we'll adapt. Humans have survived in far worse conditions than a Zephyrian challenge. Let's remember, our strength is our creativity and our strategy is honesty. Everything else will follow." The delegation was escorted to the Hall of Assemblies once more. Today, the room felt even grander. A holographic projection rose from the floor, depicting a planet in turmoil. Two alien civilizations, each with advanced technology, were in a dispute over shared resources. The delegates were tasked with proposing a solution that would maintain peace and ensure prosperity for both. The game required not just logic, but empathy, negotiation, and the ability to foresee consequences. Other delegates immediately began consulting with their own teams, calculating outcomes and formulating rigid strategies. Some tried to dominate discussions, while others attempted to manipulate smaller factions. Elias, observing quietly, noticed patterns and tendencies. The Zephyrians were testing adaptability, who could approach problems not with rules but with understanding. When it was his turn to speak, Elias proposed something that stunned the assembly. Instead of taking sides or asserting dominance, he suggested forming a cooperative council composed of representatives from both civilizations. Each side would have equal input, and together they would create shared policies for resource management, conflict resolution, and cultural exchange. His proposal emphasized dialogue, fairness, and innovation, rather than victory. The room went silent. Delegates whispered among themselves. The Zephyrians' simulations were designed to reward cunning and strategic advantage, yet here was a human suggesting collaboration, a concept both elegant and revolutionary. Princess Lyriel's eyes shone with interest, and for the first time in the assembly she smiled, a subtle, knowing smile that hinted at approval. The next stage was unexpected. Thalorin, the chief of protocol, announced that the simulation would now adapt dynamically. The civilizations would react to decisions made by the delegates, and consequences would unfold in real time. Many delegates faltered, unprepared for the complexity. Elias, however, stayed calm. He spoke clearly, listened carefully, and adjusted his proposals based on feedback. When one side expressed doubt, he addressed their concerns. When the other grew frustrated, he offered reassurance and innovative alternatives. Slowly, his approach began to succeed. Instead of domination or trickery, he relied on understanding and empathy. His solutions maintained balance, fostered cooperation, and earned respect from all parties. Observers, including alien diplomats who had doubted humans, began nodding in quiet admiration. It was not just intelligence that carried the day. It was integrity, adaptability, and genuine care for all involved. During the break, Princess Lyriel approached him again, walking gracefully across the hall. "Your methods are unorthodox," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "Most would have tried to manipulate or control. Most would have relied on rules or intimidation. But you trust in understanding." Elias smiled humbly. "Understanding is the foundation of progress. If we cannot respect one another's perspectives, how can we hope to build a lasting future together?" She considered his words, clearly impressed. "It is rare to find a human with your insight. Most of your kind rely on instinct, but you combine instinct with thought. You are bold yet thoughtful. That combination is extraordinary." As the final stage of the simulation unfolded, Elias faced an unexpected challenge. A sudden environmental crisis occurred in the holographic planet. A severe storm threatened the resources of both civilizations. Delegates were given limited time to respond. Many panicked, focusing only on their assigned faction. Elias remained calm. He quickly proposed a contingency plan, shared shelters, joint monitoring teams, and adaptive protocols for disaster response. His plan not only protected resources but also strengthened trust between the civilizations. The Zephyrians observed silently, impressed. Princess Lyriel's expression was thoughtful, almost radiant. She seemed to recognize something fundamental. The human approach, grounded in collaboration and ingenuity, was capable of solving problems that even advanced alien minds struggled to address. When the simulation ended, Thalorin stepped forward. "The results are unprecedented," he said. "The human delegation has demonstrated a level of insight, adaptability, and ethical reasoning rarely seen in this court. The princess has requested a private audience with the lead diplomat." Elias bowed respectfully, aware that this was both an honor and a test. Mara glanced at him, offering a supportive nod. "You've earned it," she whispered. The private audience was held in the palace's luminescent gardens, a place few outsiders had seen. Bioluminescent plants cast soft, shifting light, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of alien blossoms. Princess Lyriel led him to a quiet terrace overlooking the floating city. For a moment, they simply watched the light dance across the crystalline structures. "You have done more than succeed in the simulations," she said finally. "You have demonstrated what humans are capable of when guided by intelligence and integrity. You have shown courage, creativity, and understanding. But more than that, you have done so without losing yourself to the expectations of others. That is rare." Elias felt a warmth at her words, though he kept his expression composed. "Thank you, Princess. It is not about winning or showing strength. It is about finding solutions that honor all parties, including those who may seem different." Lyriel smiled, a gesture that seemed to light the entire terrace. "Your words are compelling, and your actions have captivated me in ways I did not anticipate. You see the world with clarity, yet you move with kindness and resolve. It is refreshing." Elias regarded her thoughtfully. "It is an honor to earn your respect, Princess. Humans value intelligence, courage, and cooperation. I believe those qualities can bridge even the widest divides between worlds." She laughed softly, a sound like wind chimes. "Perhaps humans are not as unpredictable as I once thought. Perhaps your kind is capable of more than I imagined." Over the next few hours, they walked through the gardens, discussing philosophy, history, and the responsibilities of leadership. Elias shared stories of Earth's struggles and triumphs, how humanity had survived wars, natural disasters, and internal conflicts through ingenuity, compassion, and unity. Lyriel listened intently, occasionally asking pointed questions about human ethics, decision-making, and cultural diversity. With each exchange, her admiration grew, not just for the human intellect, but for the clarity and courage with which he expressed it. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet, Lyriel turned to Elias. "You have changed how I see humans. Not all your kind, perhaps, but you are proof that courage, intelligence, and integrity can achieve what force cannot." "I am intrigued by you, Elias Harper." Elias smiled humbly. "I am honored, Princess. It is not recognition that I seek, but understanding, and it seems we have found it in each other." The next day, the Hall of Assemblies convened for the final announcement of the summit. Delegates gathered, each anticipating the results of the games, simulations, and interactions. Thalorin, standing before the assembly, spoke solemnly. "The Zephyrian court has observed all participants carefully. Today, we recognize a delegation that exemplifies qualities our simulations cannot quantify: insight, creativity, ethical reasoning, and courage. The human delegation, led by Elias Harper, has not only met the challenges, but has exceeded expectations." A murmur spread through the assembly. Delegates from other species exchanged surprised glances. Humans, once considered naive and simple, were being celebrated for qualities no other species had demonstrated so convincingly. Princess Lyriel stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. The humans have shown us that cooperation, integrity, and bold thinking are as valuable as tradition and strategy. Their actions remind us that wisdom is not determined by history alone, but by the courage to act with thought and empathy. With a graceful gesture, she formally extended a proposal, a new alliance between Zephyria Prime and Earth, emphasizing cultural exchange, trade, and shared scientific advancement. The assembly erupted in astonishment, not just at the proposal itself, but at the unprecedented respect it represented for humanity. Elias Harper bowed, maintaining his composure. He had not sought accolades or influence. He had sought understanding and collaboration. Yet the recognition was undeniable, and more importantly, it had opened doors that had once seemed permanently closed. After the formalities, the princess invited Elias once more to the luminescent gardens. This time they walked without protocol, without witnesses, discussing ideas, ambitions, and the future of interstellar diplomacy. Lyriel admitted that she was captivated, not only by his intellect, but by the manner in which he embodied human courage and authenticity. Elias responded with quiet honesty. Humans are imperfect, but we strive for understanding and improvement. We learn from mistakes, and we act boldly when guided by principle. That is who we are. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the bioluminescent glow around them. And that, Elias Harper, is why I am captivated. Not by what you have done, but by what you represent. Humanity's potential is remarkable. The summit concluded, but the impact of Elias' actions reverberated far beyond the halls of the Zephyrian court. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy had transformed overnight. Delegates who had doubted them now sought cooperation. Other civilizations began to reconsider the underestimated humans, recognizing a species capable of ingenuity, diplomacy, and courage. As Dauntless prepared to depart Lysara, Elias stood on the observation deck once more, gazing at the shimmering city below. Princess Lyriel joined him silently, standing beside him without ceremony. For a moment they watched the twin moons rise over the horizon, casting silver light across floating towers. "You have done more than negotiate a treaty," she said softly. "You have shown the galaxy what humans are truly capable of, and you have captivated me." Elias turned to her, offering a warm, genuine smile. "It was never about impressing anyone. It was about being true to who we are. But I am honored that it has made a difference for the galaxy and for you." Lyriel nodded, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Perhaps this is the beginning of a new chapter for both our worlds, one built on respect, understanding, and boldness. One in which humans may lead not by force, but by intellect, courage, and empathy." Together they watched as the city of Lysara shimmered beneath them, a testament to what was possible when worlds met not as rivals, but as partners. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy not through conquest, but through boldness, honesty, and creativity. And in doing so, they had not only won the respect of an alien civilization, but had begun a connection with a princess whose admiration and intrigue promised a future of collaboration, discovery, and mutual inspiration. Elias Harper knew the journey ahead would be long and full of challenges, but for the first time, he felt that humanity's place in the galaxy was secure, not through fear, but through the power of the human spirit. And as he stood beside Lyriel, he understood that some bonds, between species, cultures, and hearts, were formed not through ceremony or obligation, but through courage, understanding, and the quiet, undeniable strength of being truly oneself. The stars above stretched endlessly, and humanity had taken its first, bold step among them. And with that step came promise of friendship, alliance, and a future where intelligence, integrity, and courage could illuminate even the darkest corners of the galaxy. The story of the human diplomat and the alien princess was only beginning, but already it had reshaped the way the galaxy would view humans forever.